Drop it. Welcome back, everybody, to this week's bonus edition live of the DCL Duo podcast. We are back live this week, and so it's been a little sporadic getting these live episodes put together, but we're hoping to do them more often. So we start by bringing back in my lovely co-host and wife, Sam. Hey, Sam, how you doing?
Good. Hey.
Hey, and so now that we're here together, we have a few thank yous to do. And the first thank you we have to give is to our sponsor over at Touring Plans Travel. We use Touring Plans Travel to book our family's own fabulous DCL vacations and have a fabulous travel agent over there, a travel specialist over there that we use. And so I want to thank them for sponsoring our show. And if you are looking for someone to book some travel with, whether it's on Disney or not, you can head over to touringplans.com/travel. Let them know we referred you over from the DCL Duo to help support the show, and we think you'll have a fabulous experience with them. So
absolutely. And they have great planning tools for planning out what rides to go on. They have a great reservation finder. All of that is included if you sign up for Touring Plans. So it's a great resource with a bunch of different tools to use for Disney parks vacations and Disney cruise vacations.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. We also have some other thank yous to do because some of you are kind enough to contribute monthly to help support our show, and those are our Patreons. And so I want to take a quick moment on a live episode to thank all of the Patreons who are out there, including some new Patreons. So at our Animators Palette tier, we got to thank Jim and Deb Mason, Steve Elsis, and Steve Creasy from the DCL podcast. So thanks, guys, for being contributors at the Animator Palette tier. At the coveted Palo dinner tier, we have Chris Braga, our friend Chris, and Jennifer Swart, who's been on the show before. So thank you, Chris and Jen.
Thank you, guys.
At our Remy Brunch tier, we have Jessica Fell. So thank you, Jessica, who's also been on the show.
Thanks, Jessica.
And at our top tier, at our Remy dinner tier, that special coveted Remy dinner tier, we have to thank Jeffrey Federson. So thanks, Jeff, for being a supporter of the show. We have no one at the Palo Brunch tier.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I know. Palo Brunch is the best. How is there nobody at Palo Brunch?
I put them in the wrong order. Palo Brunch should have been the top tier. So anyway, with all the thank yous out of the way, we have one more person to thank, and that is our fabulous recurring news and commentary co-host, and that's Adrian. So welcome, Adrian. Hi. Thanks for coming on.
Hey,
always fun.
We love having Adrian on. We've got a bevy of news. It's been a month since we all came together, so we've got a bevy of news to talk about this evening and some listener questions we want to answer. And I did want to say, if you are out there and you want to send us some questions, we will be sure to answer them on the show this evening. So send us questions in the chat. And if you're in the chat on Facebook, make sure you give StreamYard permission to access your information so that we can see who you are as we interact with you. So with that, let's dive into some of our news and commentary for the month, I suppose. So we're going to start with a little bit of parks news. Sam, what's going on in the parks these days?
Okay, well, I want to talk about Disneyland Park, or Disneyland Resort, I should say, because Disneyland is personally my favorite of the two. And so Disneyland on June 15th will be reopening to non-California residents. So Brian and I and our son are taking a trip over there real soon. They still have a ton of COVID precautions in place. They have not announced the lifting of those other restrictions like face masks and social distancing and stuff like that at Disneyland Resort, although we'll talk in a second about what's going on at Disney World. So Disneyland Hotel doesn't reopen until July 2nd. Even though out-of-state residents can go in just a couple of weeks, or just 1 week actually. And then the Paradise Pier Hotel actually opens on June 15th, the same day that out-of-state residents can go to Disneyland. Grand Californian's been open for a while now, and so that's what's going on at Disneyland. Oh, but let's not forget Avengers Campus just opened.
I was going to say, you buried the lead. Avengers Campus opened this week.
The Avengers Campus just opened a couple days ago. The new Spider-Man ride is using a similar reservation system as we saw for Rise of the Resistance, except you have 2 chances to make a reservation, one at 7 a.m. and one at noon. And if you have to be at Disney's California Adventure to do the 7 a.m. To get a 7 a.m. boarding pass, which is a morning boarding pass. But you don't have to be at California Adventure to get a noon boarding pass or afternoon boarding pass, so long as you have a park hopper ticket. So those are the requirements. It's all done through the app, just like Rise of the Resistance, and it's done in the exact same way as Rise of the Resistance did. So that's what's going on at Disneyland.
Nice. Adrian, you excited to make it over to Disneyland? Check out Avengers Campus?
I want to go so badly. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, probably September, I'll take a go out to California and take my grand niece for the first time to Disneyland. So
fun.
She's 3. So I get to start all over again and see it through that view lens. And then I'll just have to make sure my niece goes so I can pawn her off on her mom so I can go to Avengers Campus.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm so glad that it's opening to outside residents, and I'm thrilled that you guys are going to go. You have such a good time.
I've heard some disappointment with the new Web Slingers ride, although I've also heard some people say everyone's hating on the ride. They actually haven't ridden yet. But I am actually, what I'm most interested and excited by is the fact that all of the dining in the land is like pre-order quick service right now. So it's a lot of the Disneyland dining reservations are taken up. And so it'll be nice to have an option that's new and also isn't necessarily one that you have to have a reservation for. So with that, hey, let's fly over to the East Coast. Adrian, you wanted to share some news this evening coming out of Disney World. And so what's going on in Disney World?
Okay, so Disney World is in the usual quandary of what to do with masks. Universal has lifted their mask mandate. Social distance, it doesn't exist. COVID doesn't exist at Universal right now. So, but Disney World is still maintaining that they're going to keep masks on rides. I know it's been a very big stretch. They had said with employees, they said they're having a rough time with that actually, because people are not thrilled with it. They're just not happy. But I think they're going to lift the mask mandate soon. I really do. I think that, they were getting rid of the washing stations. They lifted the temperatures. I think little by little, it's just going to fade away, especially in the heat of the summer. They're going to say, you know what? Fine, let's just do it. Universal did it. Let's see.
Yeah, and there's reports coming out of Walt Disney World that they're removing some of the social distancing signage, although they have not yet completely, changed the social distancing rules. And so the lines are still, the ride queues are still with social distancing in place, but we may see that change or lessen, I think, in the coming month or two. I think you're right, Adrian. Summertime is real hot and humid in Florida, and people don't want to wear masks. They've, I think, already eliminated for cast members who don't have any contact with guests and are outside, that they don't have to wear masks. But, that's only for like maybe custodial or, people who organically don't really come into a lot of contact with guests. But
I think the controversial problem with lifting with masks is not the people that have the vaccines, right? Because that's what we're all talking about. It's the fact that 2-year-olds can't get the vaccine, 3, 4, 5, up to 12. So you're really in a juggle on which way you should go with it.
Well, speaking of that, I think we're going to get into that a little bit later when we talk about some test cruising. So let's move into cruising. Let's get some cruising topics out here. So first big update of the day, it was an app update from Disney Cruise Line, and Sam,
Yes.
what has Disney Cruise Line added into their fantastic, well, kind of fantastic app?
Well, you probably know better than I do on this. I read something real briefly. I didn't get a chance to, I was busy at work today, so I didn't get it. This came out just today. But I did see that there's going to be, when you're on board, a sort of talk to a crew member type thing. So it's like a get help kind of thing in the app, which they've never had before, where you could, contact a crew member to ask a question. And it sounds like maybe more virtual queue signups. The one thing I did notice was there's going to be a virtual queue sign up in the app for pool deck. So that was one thing people were talking
Family
about was,
pool.
right, for how are they going to limit the number of people at the family pool? And everybody said there was going to be some kind of queue. Well, it sounds like it's a virtual queue. It's going to be on your phone. You're going to sign up and you'll get a notification when there's room for you on the pool deck, presumably.
And one other big update was virtual muster drills incorporated into the app.
yeah.
I didn't see that. Okay.
So yes,
cool.
so thank God for the virtual muster drill. But yes, it was virtual queues for the pool, the family pool area, virtual muster drills, and then the ability to self-serve through in-app chat with the crew. I saw, and
or
I saw
as our
chat,
son calls it, the must-do drill. The
Must
must-do.
Yeah, I saw the chat with crew, and I immediately thought, like, "Ooh, am I going to be able to, like, hey, Captain, can we turn the ship a little bit to the left?" But anyway, all good app updates, and kind of not unexpected given where Disney needs to head for the post-COVID sailing. So download the app, available on, I guess, iOS and Android today, and you can't play around with the update. Half of these updates probably until you're on board, but they're there.
You have to wait till you're on the boat. I looked. I tried.
Yeah, that's the bummer that's the one thing about Disney Cruise Line's app is that you can't really do a lot of browsing in the app. It would be cool if you could look at online navigators and things like that ahead of time, but you really can't. Everything is really available once you're on board.
Yeah. I agree with Sam, because it makes it easier when you're familiar that you know what you want to put in right when you get on board. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, and I think they do allow through the app now. You can do your online check-in and your pre-booking
certain reservations
and stuff like that. And then they announced today some updates to allow for some like booking free activities on board 30 days out, which I think is also a COVID response. So it suggests to me there's going to be some like activities that would otherwise not be bookable that are now bookable. So
yeah, I wonder if shows are going to be like that. So I wonder if you're going to reserve your spot for one of the shows and have to show the app when you walk in. That's what I'm going to guess that's what they're going to do to limit the number of people coming to each show. You're going to essentially reserve your spot, and some other activities, maybe the adult entertainment, like things like that. Mm-hmm. So there, we're going to see more than 2 showings probably of each show, at least for a little bit of time, and maybe for these UK staycations.
Yeah.
And that's what I had said. I had thought they were going to add a 3rd show for sure, because it's too many people. And then it divvies up the dining a little bit more as well. So I think that would work better.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to some more good news coming out of Disney Cruise Line this week, which was the Dream is now slated for a 2-night test cruise departing on, I think it's June 29th, returning on July 1st out of Port Canaveral. So a 2-night test cruise for Disney. That's a precursor that Disney has to take before they can get a conditional sailing approval from the CDC, if and only if they don't intend to have at least 98% of crew and 95% of passengers vaccinated. And so,
and it's a cruise to nowhere.
Cruise to nowhere. Literally. It's meant to you can't book it. They aren't taking volunteers. This is going to be an instance, I think, when Disney leans on its cast members to provide the test subjects, and the test cruise passengers have to be vaccinated themselves. Yes. And it's really a cruise intended to test onboard protocols, including things like quarantine and moving a sick passenger from a passenger area into a quarantine area and things of that nature. So there's a lot of technical requirements Disney has to meet for the test cruise. And then they have to run the cruise, do a report on the cruise. The CDC can check in on the cruise. And once the report goes from Disney to the CDC has an undetermined amount of time, at least of which I'm aware, to issue them a conditional sailing approval. So what do we think about this, Adrian?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I think that, when else are you going to do it? You have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think between the UK cruise that's coming up, I think they are going to, well, those are passengers, right? So they're going to have all of the passengers on that. I think it's going to be a test run with non-Disney people, where the dream is going to be really employees and people like that, and to figure it out. I think it's important, and it's the best step we can ever ask for right now. If we want to sail, we have to do these things. It's just the way it is. And I begged to be a volunteer, but yeah, it didn't happen.
I think it's a step that Disney in particular has to take, because everyone's been wrestling with, well, what are they going to do about kids? What are they going to do about kids? Because kids under 12 aren't eligible for vaccination. A lot of people have been using this to say, well, it means Disney's not going to require vaccination. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I don't think it means that at all. I think what Disney is saying is, we can't sail if 5% of our population is kids under 12, or over 5% of our is kids under 12, which we might expect. They know the numbers. And so I could actually see Disney saying, look, we're actually going to require any passengers over the age of 16 to have proof of vaccination. But if you're, or actually over 12 to have proof of vaccination, anyone under 12 will allow on board without that proof, because we'll have our conditional sailing approval. But I could see Disney doing that, with the one wrinkle being, I hate to alienate any of our fans out there, but Florida's governor is creating some real problems for the cruise industry right now, and specifically around cruise lines that want to require vaccination. As you may recall, as I mentioned earlier, the CDC set a fast track path for cruises to restart, which was, if you have 98% of crew and 95% of passengers on board vaccinated, you can start sailing without test cruises. So several of the cruise lines announced that that's what they were going to do, and Florida's governor said no. I saw an article last week that estimated that it would cost Royal Caribbean about $14.5 million per sailing to sail in direct contravention of the governor's order. And so it's a
$5,000 penalty per instance.
Per person. So we've seen this week some news of cruise lines backing off of their position. So I don't know what you all think about that.
It's kind of crazy. Royal Caribbean was, I think, leading the charge on vaccinated cruisers originally, because they had that the health advisory board that was a bunch of cruise lines that voluntarily came together to come up with ways that they could cruise safely, that they really wanted the CDC to buy into. Basically, they were trying to show we can cruise safely. And like I said, Royal Caribbean was leading the charge on this. And now they have backed down and said they are not going to require vaccines for any passengers. They're going to require testing, I believe, which is mandated by the CDC anyway. So right now, they said they haven't. Carnival Cruise Line, I think, changed. They also originally said they were going to require it. And then now I think they've changed their website that it says something like out of Seattle and out of the Caribbean, cruises will be required to have vaccinations. And that's probably because the Caribbean, the Bahamian governments are probably saying that. And I would not be surprised if so did Washington State. So Brian and I live in the Seattle area, which is a very pro-vaccine area. We have one of the highest percentages of populations that has been vaccinated, particularly in King County, which is the county that Seattle is located, the most populous county of the state. And so we're about a third of the population of the state of Washington is just King County. So yeah, it does not surprise me that out of our area, it may be that the city or the state requires for cruise ships to require eligible folks to be vaccinated. They I'm sure won't mandate 100% vaccination, but probably if you're eligible and you don't have a medical exemption or something, you'll have to be vaccinated to sail out of Seattle, which brings us to kind of this issue of Alaska this summer, right? So one of the things we've been talking about, and we talked about on the last episode, we had Adrian on with us to talk about news was...
Well, hold on. Before we go to Alaska, I want to spend a little bit more time on the Dream. Because I also saw a couple of announcements today in the news about some of the cruise lines now announcing sailings out of Galveston, which I thought was interesting. Vaccinated sailings out of Galveston. That was Carnival. Yeah. Yep. Which is interesting from the standpoint of, you won't let us do it in Port Canaveral in Miami. We'll go to Texas. The other thing I saw was
period.
The other thing I saw was some mention that cruise lines might be looking at engaging third-party apps to collect the information. There's some speculation that if they leverage a third party to collect the information, then it might get them around the governor's mandate.
I don't think it will.
I don't know. But the other thing that I'm hearing is that some of the cruise lines might be offering, or at least looking at, onboard incentives. And so if you voluntarily report your vaccination status to the cruise line, they'll give you some better experiences on board, which I also find interesting. I don't know, Adrian, I'd love your thoughts on, I mean, would you want to sail on a cruise ship that didn't have a vaccination requirement?
You didn't even have to finish that statement, because the answer is no. I honestly, the only way that this will shift is we all know what would have to happen. It would have to become a COVID. People are going to get sick. They're going to have to sail. They're not going to be able to get into a port because the ship has passengers that are sick. And we're going to be where we were, and then it's going to ruin it for the cruises again. Listen, let's be real. Cruising is difficult at best when you're doing this. This is one of the first thing. I mean, if you remember the beginning of COVID, all the cruise ships, you pay for 3 days, but you get 3 weeks because they couldn't come back. So,
that's right.
Wow, that sounds great.
Well, yeah. I mean, the other thing for us to keep in mind is the crew. Like, I'm not sure that because we were talking to, we were recording with a crew member the other day, and he mentioned to us, look, we get on and off every 3 to 7 days. The passengers do. The crew are there for 6 months.
They're stuck
recycling through passengers over and over again. And so it's not the safest environment if they're not, surrounded by at least, I would say, a ship that's at least 70% vaccinated or 80%.
There is no reason to not have just show your card. And I think you're in international waters. You're talking, all you're going to do is dock there, right? So it's just getting on the ship there. So what's the big deal? Just have the vaccination and do what you need to do, and everybody has a good time, and you come back and you feel good.
Yep.
Well, I saw somebody mention today the other thing they're going to run up against is foreign ports. Like, there are going to be foreign ports that say you can only dock
you have to have your vaccine.
So, like, how are they going to do that if Florida's going to fine them to even collect the information to begin with? So that's a rough situation, I think, for the business.
Will the governor be willing to lose Florida because, like you said, they're going to go to Galveston, they're going to go to Seattle. There's other places. Even New York would require vaccinations if you leave from New York ports.
Yep. I think he's playing a game of chicken right now, though. And so far, the cruise lines. Yeah. So far, the cruise lines are backing off. That's so far. I mean, we've seen with Royal, they're going to be sailing out of Florida and not requiring vaccines. So that's unfortunate. I agree with you, Adrian. I want to sail, but I want to sail with everyone who's eligible for a vaccine and not exempt because of a medical reason. I want all of those people to be vaccinated. And you know what? I also want to be on the cruise and not have to wear a mask. And that will be only possible if we actually have vaccinations. That's the other thing, other end of the coin is, right? If you want to sail safely and you want to be a little bit more comfortable, because let's be honest, wearing a mask all day, every day, is not very comfortable.
You're going to sit there by the pool with that?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, listen, doctors and nurses do it all day. And so I know we can't complain too much considering they have to do it all day in hospitals. However, it will be nice to not have to. And if you're in an environment where everyone is vaccinated, that can be, right? So everyone based on age and medical eligibility, then, you really can be. That's what the CDC is saying right now, that I can go over to my friend's house if we're both vaccinated and I don't have to wear a mask.
Well, so Michael here is reminding us there's an app that puts your vaccination card in your Apple Wallet, so you have it on you at all times. I did not know that. I'm going to go find that app.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah,
thank you, Michael. That is a great tip because I'm getting ready to head out to Orlando actually, so I'd like to have my vaccination card around just in case. I guess not that Orlando really checks, but
not that it matters in Florida.
Not that it matters in Florida, but it'd be nice.
Well, they can't ask.
They can't ask. That's right.
Well, let's head back to where you were headed, Sam, which was Alaska. Beautiful Alaska. so we're going to engage in this. This is supposed to be a news show, which is generally fact based, but we had a question from a listener. I could summarize as essentially WTF is going on with Alaska. So we are here to rampantly speculate about what's going on with Alaska. Now, we know that some of the cruise lines are going to restart and head up to Alaska. What we don't know is what is Disney going to do about sailing to Alaska. And what we do know on the Disney front is that there are no Alaska cruises available to book, but those who have booked Alaska cruises past, I don't know what the date is, but mid-July, I think, their cruises are still showing up in their apps. They've passed pay.
I think it's July. Is it July 19th? I think they didn't cancel July 19th forward. I think
they've passed pay and full dates at this point. Their countdown clocks are marching forward, and people are going, "What is Disney thinking?" I don't know, Adrian. What is Disney thinking? You should put it on your Karnak suit, and
I'm not really sure what they're thinking, because I thought that you weren't allowed to sail from Vancouver.
Well, correct. They would need a port agreement with Seattle, which I reached out to the port of Seattle and I inquired after whether or not there was an agreement in place to allow Disney to sail, and I got the vague answer back. We're talking with lots of cruise lines right now about their ability to sail.
I'm sure they are, because I know for a fact Vancouver is not opening. They literally said no to this summer, which it's funny because I was having this discussion the other night and about the Alaskan cruise, that there wasn't going to be an Alaskan season this year, basically, because Vancouver closed it off. So I didn't think about that Seattle would pick up the port and do it from there.
Yeah, well, with Seattle available and the amendment to the Passenger Service Vessel Act that allows now for the Alaska cruises, so long as Canada remains closed, they can sail without stopping at a foreign port stop. Once Canada reopens, the amendment automatically expires and reverts to normal. They have to have stops in a foreign port again.
But they said that Justin Trudeau was very adamant that this year it was not happening. It was staying closed. I mean, people who go to Vancouver are still, even if they had the vaccine, they are still required now to quarantine, even with the vaccine.
Yeah.
So they're not opening this summer.
But, Sam, what do you think? What do you think Disney's going to do? And I'll put in one other fact, which is, well, we heard an announcement that the Dream is doing a technical sail or a simulated sailing. There's no simulated sailing announced for the Wonder, which is the ship that would have to make its way to the canal in order to do Alaska. And so at a month out,
you're reading my mind, Brian. So for me, my guess, I'm not sure the other cruise lines are going to make it out of Seattle. I know the other cruise lines have started, selling and announced and all that, but none of them have completed their test cruises.
But they don't have to. They don't have
only if they're requiring all passengers to be vaccinated. I haven't seen, including, which means they really no kids younger than 12. So I haven't seen what all those cruises say. But if they're planning on basically not having anyone under the age of 12, that can happen. Okay, with other cruise lines, I'm not sure what's going on with the other cruise lines, but I'm not confident. I'll be honest. I'm not confident that any cruise lines are going to be sailing out of Seattle this summer. But let me say,
wait, hold on. I can't imagine the customer bad will they will get if they just sold them an Alaska cruise.
Well,
I think they're going to sail. We're going to see.
All right. Well, here's the thing. Disney, I think, no way. Disney, I'm saying there's a chance of some other cruise lines, but it's not going to be anybody 12 and under. It's only going to be 12 and over. I guess, it's not going to be under 12. It's going to be 12 and over with proof of vaccination, like 100%, vaccinated. But I'm saying that Disney's not going to be sailing in Alaska this summer. My prediction is based on exactly what Brian just said. One, we know that Wonder is still in Florida. It hasn't made its way through the Panama Canal, so it's not on the West Coast yet. And two, Disney's first test cruise is not until June 29th. What are the odds, even if that test cruise counted towards the Wonder being on Alaska?
Well, it doesn't. Okay,
well, there you go.
The CDC requires each ship undergo a simulated sailing. Yeah.
I was going to say, even if it did qualify, it's still not enough time because the season in Alaska is the ones they didn't cancel is starting, I think, like I said, July 19th and forward, right? That's like 2.5 weeks after they do the test cruise on the Dream. So if they're not doing a test cruise on the Wonder,
Right.
then it's not going to happen at all. And two, even if the Dream test cruise happened, it's not enough time to get a response back from the CDC saying, we approve. There's no way. The CDC has moved like molasses for months and months and months. There is no way the CDC.
Almost a year. I mean,
exactly. There's no way we get any.
The amount of reports that the cruise lines have been giving them and begging with them. And they're like, well, this is all we can say right now. So I don't think it will happen, but I could see like what you said, Sam. I think maybe the Princess Cruise Line I could see possibly, because they're known for their Alaskan cruises especially with the older crowd, right?
Right.
And you're saying
that's the only possibility. Right. And it's going to be reduced capacity and all that. So the only chance I see of anyone sailing out of Seattle is like a Princess or maybe Holland or, somebody, one of the brands that one skews older and two will only allow for vaccinated folks.
We have an uncontroversial comment for the DCL duo here from Chad. Change the law to let us sail from Seattle. The U.S. government is wasting lots of money by not allowing us to always cruise from Seattle. You will not hear argument from us about more cruising out of Seattle.
We will agree with you there, Chad. Yeah. So what Chad is saying for people watching and listening is that if they change the law to not require you to stop at a foreign port, then it's likely that, all of the cruise lines would be sailing out of Seattle and not out of Vancouver, because it would be.
I don't actually know. But Vancouver is a nice city to sail.
Vancouver is a really nice city, but but it would be totally fine for us if you didn't stop in Canada and you just went to Alaska. I mean, we love Vancouver. It's a wonderful city. We love Victoria. It's also a wonderful city, but we can go anytime. So I'm okay skipping it on a cruise.
Well,
sorry, BC people.
But you can really make it multi-port then. I mean, some cruises sail from here, some from there, and take it from that way.
Yeah. Well, the summary of our rampant speculation is. So you're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying
not
no
for
chance.
Disney. For Disney, there's no chance. For the other cruise lines, I actually think we will see cruise ships docked in Seattle this summer, sailing to Alaska with all vaccinated cruising. But for Disney, I would say there's no chance. I don't know why they're holding on to people's money for so long. But I think they might free it up here with an itinerary release. I could see new itineraries, next round of itineraries coming out here in this month. And so maybe when they release those itineraries, they'll also cancel out the Alaska bookings so people can rebook. Well, with that, hey, we had one other, since we're also doing a listener question show tonight, we had one other listener question who came in from a Patreon who asked, this may be a little too personal, but how do other Disney cruise lovers go about setting their budget for cruising? So I guess Sam and I can fight back and forth over how we set our non-existent budget for cruising. But Adrian, any tips for those out there as they're looking to cruise on Disney Cruise Line, how to think about budgeting for a cruise and setting a budget for a cruise?
I mean, there is the basics where how much time are you going to spend in your room? How important is it to you to have the veranda? Maybe if you really plan on being outside, stay in an inside cabin. It's, and do things like that. There's little things you can do, but budgeting with a Disney cruise has been like something that I've had a very difficult time with. We all know they don't have an alcohol package and those $5 drink mugs go all day long in my house. I mean, that's one way to do it. There's little things, but Disney Cruise Line is definitely expensive, but I will tell you, there is no better cruise line. I've been on cruises and it is the top shelf of cruise lines, and it's hard, but think how often are you in your room to have the view? If you really want to save a lot of money, do an inside, do a lower cabin, port, and not do the verandas. That's where the money comes in.
Yeah. One, and the other thing to think through is one, you hit on it. Disney's a luxury product. I want to say I believe that it's positioned itself as a luxury good, not as a Carnival cruise line sort of anyone can go. The other thing it's done, though, is it's all built in. I mean, you're right, drinks on board, you got to pay for. There's some ways to save some money there, but food's all paid for. Entertainment's all paid for. you got to pay for your shore excursions, but you don't have to go through Disney for that. You can save some money by, booking private excursions or just getting off and sort of wandering the port on your own a little bit.
Yeah.
But so much is included in a Disney cruise that a Carnival might nickel and dime you over. When you look at I'm not saying all that nickel and diming takes a Carnival fare to a Disney fare. That's not what I'm saying, but it certainly starts to close a gap, I think. So Sam, what do you think?
Okay, so I'm going to give a rule of thumb. So if you're spending maybe like $1,000 per person on a Carnival cruise, you're going to be spending about $3,000 per person on a Disney cruise. That's what I'm going to give as a rule of thumb for booking, right? And that's not including excursions and, drinks and things like that.
You think so?
Yes, I think so. Yes, I think it's about.
You think it because it's a week-long Disney cruise on the Fantasy, depending on when you're going to like the Caribbean. I mean, we've gotten on there for $4,000 or less in an ocean view stateroom. I'm
thinking about the Wish prices, though. Look at the Wish prices.
No, don't go by the Wish.
Okay, all right, okay.
If you want to cruise on a budget with Disney, don't go on the Wish.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Get the Wish right now.
Well, I'm saying though,
Wish is also expensive for the first couple of months. If you look beyond it, it's really not as bad.
I'm not. So I'm trying to give an order of magnitude, right? So because Carnival you can get for less than $1,000 for a cruise on a lot of times on one of those last minute deals or things like that. You're not going to get that on Disney. So I'm saying Carnival versus Disney 2 times, 2.5 times, sometimes even 3 times as much, right? But I do agree with Brian on you can get away with not spending that much per day on a Disney cruise, right? If you're not a big drinker, you are not going to spend a lot of money per day on a Disney cruise. If you don't go to the spa, you're not going to spend a lot per day on a Disney cruise. So those are the ways in which, you won't have to have this huge add-on of costs at the end of the cruise.
And there's a way to get some of those experiences without if you really want to have an adult dining experience, head to Palo, not Remy. Like you're going to save a ton of money eating at Palo over eating at Remy and still have an adult dinner, right? And the beer mug's a good one. You want an expensive glass of wine, head up to Meridian and ask them what they have in the bin. Because they open some very expensive bottles of champagne and wine to pour a couple glasses for those dining in Remy, and then they sit in the bin, and they will be happy to pour you that same glass at a discounted rate. So,
or just skip adult dining. I mean, the regular dining rooms are really fantastic food, and you don't have to pay the upcharge if it's not something in your budget. And if it's also not in your taste profile, right? Like those are things that you don't have to do. Obviously, we advocate very much for Apollo brunch because we love it, and we love Remy for dinner. But that's not for everyone from not just a taste perspective, but from a budget perspective. You don't have to do it. You can have a great time on your Disney cruise, skipping adult dining.
Adrian's been dying to say.
Yeah, here's what I want to say though. I went on. I cheated on Disney, and I went on Royal Caribbean, and I thought, I'm saving so much money. It was a big difference. I got the dining package, but it was a dining package, so I didn't have to eat in the same dining room every day. So I took the dining package, so I can cruise and eat at different restaurants. I did the drink package, but there were things that weren't on it. I went to the Japanese hibachi restaurant. Guess what? That's not in the dining package. Now, flip that around to Disney. Every night is a different experience in every dining room, right? You have Animator's Palette. You have, depending on what ship you're in, you have different dining. You have Cinderella. You have, and on the Wish, forget it. There's going to be endless. And that's all included without you having to add on. And the entertainment is second to none. And you start going on the other cruises and you start gambling. Yeah, let me tell you, I could have had Remy every night for how much I spent on gambling. So, there's something to be said.
Good point.
Every cruise has something. And honestly, when I sat down and I came home and I wrote down how much I spent on Royal Caribbean and how much it was for Disney, let me tell you, the difference was $800. And I would have rather have done the Disney cruise any day.
Well, and I would say this too. You don't have to go on a 7-night Disney cruise. You can go on a 3-night Disney cruise.
That's
So,
right.
if you're trying to budget
Good
out
point.
what works for your family, and you want to go on, the question you should ask yourself is: do you want to go on a cruise, or you want to go on a Disney cruise? Disney
Right.
cruises cost more. If you want to go on a cruise, that's all you're looking for. Then plenty of options out there that are budget friendly, and you will get nickel and dimed a little bit on board. So pay attention to that. Disney, if you want to go on a Disney cruise, then I would say what's comfortable to you to spend on a cruise. And I think you can find an option on Disney either by looking at a shorter trip, looking at shoulder times of year. When kids are in school, the cruises tend to be a little bit less. Hurricane season, if you're willing to take a gamble and maybe get the cruise insurance, then we've sailed in
You can
hurricane
get great
season.
weather. Yeah, you get great weather during hurricane season.
I've been in the summer a bunch of times and never had a problem.
Yeah.
So,
and the inside stateroom is a great option as well for that.
Willie out there, hey Willie, says someone say budget. Multiple tips and tricks, but the biggest one is pick your vacation type, choose a time, get a Disney Visa credit card, save monthly for your cruise price, and then on pay in full day, pay with your Disney Visa and get 6 months, no interest on the purchase. We could do a whole show on this. We
Absolutely,
because there's also gift cards that you can buy with your Disney
gift
Visa
cards.
So yeah, there's lots of ways to sort of save money once you've picked the vacation. I would say budgeting for the vacation, pick a number that's comfortable, and then look for a cruise that you'll find a cruise length on Disney, stateroom category that'll probably meet close to your budget. It's not going to meet Carnival, but it's going to get you close to what.
And most of the times, if you book the cruise further away from the cruise date, you get a better rate too. I mean, they have very few times you can do like the immediate trip and see what's left, but most of the time, the sooner you know that you want to go and you book it, the better the pricing usually is too.
Yeah, we had a blog article at one point that asked, do Disney Cruise Line cruises ever get cheaper? With some very rare exceptions, the answer is no. Opening day pricing is the best pricing. And so,
the Florida resident and the military discounts are maybe
and
the
UK,
only.
There's some UK Canada discounts, and but those are on cruises that aren't sold out.
You can also go through certain, like the Disney credit card, and they offer sometimes onboard credit too. I've had pictures done and things like that. I mean, it's really there are things to be had. You just have to pay attention.
Yeah. Well, with that, I think we're going to wind down our show. Seeing no new questions coming in, I think we've answered all the listener questions that were out there, and so want to thank Adrian for coming on yet once again. Adrian, do you want to share where people can find you if they're interested in booking a vacation with you?
Let It Go Journeys, 516-728-6565.
And we will be back again next month to talk more Disney Cruise Line news, and plug for I am headed to the parks. So it's Monday night. The show will release on our podcast channel on Tuesday. I am headed to the parks on Thursday. I will be there Thursday night through Sunday. I'm leaving Sam and Nathan behind for the weekend. They left me behind to do manual labor in our yard when Sam went to visit Baltimore last weekend, or over Memorial Day weekend. I'm headed to the parks to catch up with some folks. And so I'm finally going to get on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, hoping to get on Hagrid's motorbike over at Universal if I can spare the time, and expect to see a few little live snips, and we will be podcasting about it next week on our show, the trip report from my trip to Walt Disney World. So you can listen to Sam yell at me for all the fun I had without her. So,
and for anyone who's going to be at Walt Disney World next weekend on Friday, Saturday, hit Brian up, and you can meet up with him.
I'm going to have stickers. I'm going to have magnets. You can take the magnets with you to throw on your door in your next Disney cruise now that cruising is restarting. I'll have stickers and magnets. We'll get selfies. It'll be fun. So come find me, and I'll be posting where I'm headed. And so come find me, and we'll do that. So with that, we want to wrap up here and thank everybody for watching and listening this week. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.